Hey, welcome in. Are we live? Can you see us? Let's see here.
What's going on? Booze and ghouls, welcome into the live stream. Are we live?
Can you see us?
I think we're live now. Yep, we
Can you
should
see
be
us?
live.
YouTube notification. There we are. Hey, welcome in. How is everybody? We're so excited to get Ghost Story Night back up and running. New year, new stories, new faces, and some you guys remember. Welcome in, everybody. All right.
There we go. How's everyone's Thursday night? Getting back to ghost stories with all of you guys. If you guys are new here, welcome in. We greatly appreciate it. We are Living Dead fam. We do things spooky year-round in addition to visiting our local Southern California theme parks. But this is what we love to do is tell ghost stories, watch some fun movies with you guys, do fun ghost hunting things, ghost investigations, you name it, on top of coffee. What else do we do, Living Down? Cook from the kitchen. You name it.
Whatever we throw at the wall, it sticks. Mighty Mel, thank you for the super
Hey,
chat.
Mighty Mel. Thank you, friend.
It's I think more than halfway to Halloween at this point. And so we're gearing up for halfway to Halloween, which really kind of starts the season for us. But we're Spooky 365, so we enjoy the ghost stories, be it here, be it at the campfire, wherever we can. And we've got some other ideas to start throwing at you. But we've been doing the ghost stories for what I think close to a year now. And last year, if you didn't see, we did one special one with Bob from BerryPlace28, who was a tour guide on the Queen Mary. And we learned there how amazing Bob is at telling a story, at telling stories from his own occurrences and ones from the ship, be it stories from the ship or things he experienced on the ship. I think we should play that again. Maybe we should do a premiere of that so people can catch up on that after this. But we want to give a really warm welcome. I know everyone here knows who BerryPlace28 is. Bob, come on in. Yay. There he is.
Welcome in, Bob. Happy Thursday. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing well. How's everyone else doing?
We are doing
Amazing.
great.
Amazing.
We are so excited we just had so much fun the first time you were on the stream that we couldn't wait to get you back on the live for your ghost stories. But we're so excited. Not only do you have stories from the Queen Mary part 2, but you also got some personal accounts from your home, I'm assuming. I know Living Dead Mom's got she got a little bit of the scoop. So this is all going to be very new for me as well. So I'm so excited. I cannot wait to hear what's in store for tonight's ghost stories. So buckle in, everyone. We're in for a ride tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And thank you again for having me on. I remember the last time I was on, we just talked about the ghost of the Queen Mary. We're going to talk about 4 more stories that I didn't tell from last time. And then I have some personal experiences, including one that just happened this past Sunday. And it's been very, very interesting. Just because, I don't know if I ever expected to have, encounters with, the paranormal or whatnot. And to be honest with you, I've actually only seen really a handful of ghosts. So it's mostly just things that happen and are kind of crazy. But I enjoyed being on the show last time, and I got a lot of feedback, and it seemed like everyone liked it. So I couldn't wait to come back. So thank you again for having me on. And I don't know if you guys are ready, but I'm ready for some ghost stories.
So
Let's do it, everyone. If you haven't done so yet, guys, make sure you monster mash that like button for us. And please go check out Bob as well from BerryPlace28, guys. Make sure you guys give him a follow. And make sure you guys, if you haven't done so yet, grab your favorite spooky beverage, your blanket, and some snacks, because we are in for a good one tonight, guys.
That's right.
Okay. I got my drink. I'm ready. What are you guys talking about? Well, I can't wait. We have a lot of people in the chat. Do you want to say hi
know,
to
let's
someone?
swing
We got a
hello,
lot of
Let's
people in the
definitely
chat.
give
Let's
some hellos here.
do a roll call. We got good vibes here. We got Geo Fire, Miss Garcia. What's going on, Miss Garcia?
Mitch's Adventures. Welcome in.
We also got Nightbot in the house. There's our
Nightbot.
friend Nightbot.
Finally. He was stressing us out for a minute there.
We got
Oh.
Stevie D. We got
DM.
Trish.
The Pirates of Toy Story parking lot.
We got Kiki and Luca in here. What's
Welcome
going on?
in.
Welcome in, Kiki and
Fade
Luca.
to Black.
We got DM. I'm probably repeating everyone.
ST Hunter. Christina H.
We got Wendy Girl from North Carolina.
Big Game James.
Big Game J's ST Hunter.
EXP 626.
All right, all
Monica
right.
Gonzalez.
And we got
Gladys.
we also got Cordy in California.
There she is.
Guys, make sure you guys also go check out theme parks. Bob, go ahead and plug that real quick. The theme park streamers hangout.
Yeah, Park Streamers Hangout actually, and it's
Thank
me,
you.
Theme Park Casual, in Cordy, California, and we do it every 2 weeks on a Monday, and we have a couple of amazing special guests coming on for our next show. So
That's
Perfect,
exciting.
guys.
We got Ambrosia in here. If we missed you, our hellos. Hey, C. Elvira. All right, Bob, the stage is yours. Take us away.
okay. By the way, I see some lag happening on the YouTube channel, but not on our side. So is everyone seeing the?
Are we good with lag?
Let us know in the
Oh, maybe
chat,
it's my
guys.
channel. I don't know. Let me refresh it real quick.
Who else is here? We also have got C. Elvira in the house. What else? Who else? We got Go and Shogi. Welcome in.
Evening.
Oh, nice.
Santa Crew.
ST Hunter,
47 people
cool.
with us. Thank you guys for joining. We're excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well,
Just a little
so
bit
for those you did, oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
She's just a little bit of lag. I think we're okay though. I think we're okay.
Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with my background and you didn't see the first show that I was on with the Living Dead fam, so I was actually working down at the Queen Mary, and I worked in merchandising first for about the first year, and then after that I became a tour guide, and I worked there for the total about 4 going on 5 years. And actually at the time, ironically, Disney actually came in and they were running operations at the Queen Mary because they were talking to the city of Long Beach about doing something called Disney Sea that they want to put into the harbor there, and it was going to be their next major theme park. Obviously, things didn't work out. They ended up building Disney Sea over in Tokyo. But while I was there, I was a cast member just like anyone else. I got to go to the parks and I got to, do all the cast stuff. It was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. And so that was my experience being a cast member at the Queen Mary. A little bit different because I wasn't actually at the park. However, working as a tour guide, I would do anywhere between 2 to 4 tours a day. Usually 2 was the most because they were about an hour and a half each. We did have some tours that would last up to 3 hours long, but we tried to make sure that we didn't do more than 2 or 3 a day because 4 was quite a bit. But we would have anywhere between, I'd say about 10 to maybe up to 20 people on the tour with us, and we would go around the ship. Now, the great thing was I had the keys to every room on the ship, and it was awesome. And almost every room, not the hotel rooms, obviously, but special rooms around the ship, the boiler room, the engine room, things like that, places where most people didn't get to go. And it was great because when I was not busy, I could go roam the ship and have fun. And that's where I encountered some of the ghost stories, which I told previously. But I thought I'd share with you some other ghost stories. Now, there's a couple of here that let's see. There's actually one. Oh, no. Actually, I've experienced all these. Never mind. So I was looking through my list because I've got about 4 new ghost stories to tell you guys. So on the ship, they have all these different areas, right? The middle of the ship is the first class passengers. You have the second class passengers in the back of the ship and the third class passengers in the front. And the reason why is because the front obviously rocks more than the back and the middle of the ship, and that's why first class is always middle of the ship, because it rocks the less, right? Well, in the back of the ship, they have this room called the Mauritania, and Mauritania is basically it's become like a banquet room now, and I remember that one time it was 1989. So I was actually, working there at the time, and I had heard that there were some issues happening in this room. And the ironic thing was, I'd been on several tours where I was talking to people, and they're like, "Hey, who's that person that's sitting over there?" And you're like, "What?" And you look over, there's no one there. And they're like, "Wait, I just saw someone over there." Nope, there's no one there. Don't know what you're talking about. And I would hear this from time to time, but I would never see anything. And then one day, we actually walked into the Mauritania, and there was someone in the room, and we were like, "Oh," and I'm like, "There's no one supposed to be in here, and no one has the key except for employees." So we walked in, and I told everyone, to follow me. And I went over to see who this person was that was sitting there, and it looked like a gentleman who was just, sitting there kind of staring towards the window. And the crazy thing was, I looked back towards my tour group, and said, "Excuse me one second, I addressed this gentleman," and they were like, "What gentleman?" And I turned around, and the guy is gone. So I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of weird. That's never happened before." And it was neat because no one else saw it. And I was like, "Okay, am I seeing things? What's going on?" However, in 1989, we had a cleaning crew that would go there, and we were having a VIP reception there in that room. And so they happened to walk in, and they happened to see a gentleman sitting in a seat. And so when they walked in, they started cleaning, and then a third employee came in to help them, clean the room. And she saw the gentleman and said, "I'm sorry, but could you please stop staring at me?" And the gentleman didn't say anything. And then she says, "I think you need to leave. Can you please leave?" And the gentleman wouldn't leave. So in every single room, they have telephones. And so all three ladies felt a little unnerved by this, gentleman who's sitting there kind of staring at them. They got on the phone, and as soon as they pick up the phone and they got security on the phone, he disappeared in front of them. And so I was like, vindicated. Okay. So I know I wasn't, seeing things and whatnot, or at least, I wasn't imagining it. So it was really, interesting when you hear the stories, because I would go back and I would tell security what I saw so they could report it. I would tell, my supervisors. And then of course I would tell my fellow tour guides. I'm like, "Hey, you're not going to believe what happened, but this is what happened." And they would always go, "Okay, well, I'll go in next time and, look for it." And sometimes other tour guides would, tell you really cool stories, and sometimes not. But it was always interesting to see if anyone else experienced the same thing you did, because sometimes you're just like, "Am I going crazy, or did I really see that?" However, one of the things that this ghost I never saw, but we call it the lilac ghost. And so, and not really sure what the whole background was. I know that this lady supposedly had died in the room, but we couldn't find any information on it. But the weird thing is, every time you go into this room, all of a sudden it would start smelling like lilac. And apparently the woman who was in this room, she loved lilac, and she always, wore it as a perfume. And so there would be times when I would go onto the ship and take the, tour with me, and we would go into this room. And as we go into the room, I'd be, talking about, the bed and the portholes and all this stuff and whatnot. And we were just basically showing what a room used to look like back in the day. And this is one of the few rooms that actually looked like, the rooms back in the day when the ship was actually sailing the seas. And so as we're talking and whatnot, all of a sudden this strong smell of lilac would come over the room, and you'd be like, "What? Oh, what's going on?" And the funny thing was, I was so used to it because it would happen all the time. But then I always thought I always got a kick out of it, because then people on my tour would be like, "Hey, did you spray something here? What did is it smell like lilac or something like that?" I'd always wait before I tell the ghost story, because if I told the ghost story first, people go, "Oh yeah, I can smell lilac." So if they'd say that, then I would be like, "Well, you're not going to believe this, but people, encounter this all the time." And they always think it's so funny, because when you're on these tours, they're like, "Did you spray it? What do you have back there? Is there someone in the closet spraying?" And it's like, "No, look, no one's in the closet. There's no one in here but you, me, and that's it. And the bed is right here, and the portholes. I mean, you have nothing in here." So it was really, really, interesting to see people's reactions, especially when they would, tell you, "Oh, I smell something," and it's like, "What do you smell?" And then they say, "It smells, I don't know, it's like a flower or something." I'm like, "Lilacs?" And like, "Ooh. Yeah, why?" And so I always thought that was interesting. And the funny thing is, it didn't always happen. Most of the time it
Mm.
did, but not always. So sometimes you walk in there and you're like, nothing's happening. And then sometimes you walk in and then it just would come up on you. And you're like, "Oh, where'd that come from? That's a weird smell. Oh, okay." But I got used to it real fast. But it
Wow.
was, for me, it was really interesting because people would say, "What's going on?" Why does it suddenly smell like, and to me, it was kind of funny because back then we didn't have DCA, obviously, but it's almost like Soren, it's like, "Ooh, I smell grass," "I
Right.
smell lilac." So it was kind of neat, that people would experience the same thing as me. And I'd always wait. And I didn't always have keys to this room. Sometimes I would have key to this room, sometimes not.
Mm.
Every time you go on a tour, they tell you, "Hey, what's available, what's not available." Because some of these rooms, even though they were old and they still look like the old Stater rooms, sometimes they did, rent them out or whatnot, but not very often. And then my favorite ghost aboard the Queen Mary is probably the Lady in White. So
Mm.
my favorite room on the Queen Mary, I should say, not in, but on the Queen Mary, is called the Queen Salon. If you guys have ever seen Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy, it
Mhm.
was in that movie. 13th Floor, it was in that movie as well. But the Queen Salon is an amazing salon. It was a first class passenger salon, and it was my favorite. You go in there and you'd see, the tiger wood on the walls, or you see, just the inlays that they'd have. I mean, it was just a gorgeous room. But the thing is that sometimes people would say that they saw this lady in white. Either she was in the room or she'd be in a corner dancing. And I remember going in there several times. I'd heard the ghost stories, and I never really experienced anything. And I was always wondering, "Oh, this is my favorite room. I mean, come for all the ghosts, this is the one I'd want to see," and whatnot. And so I would go on tours all the time where people would say, "Hey, is that a cast member dressed in the white dress?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then I wouldn't see anything. And they're like, "I just saw someone over there." The funny thing is, usually when she would be seen, especially like at night, it was always like a ghostly figure. But then some people reported seeing her as not a ghostly figure, as almost being physical right there in the room with them.
Wow.
And it was always kind of, spooky to hear that. I also, and here's the other crazy thing there, and you can find pictures of this if you look on the internet, but there are pictures where people would see her face in the wood. So the wood was very glossy in that room. And sometimes you would see a reflection and it looked like a white face, like a lady's white face. And when you see those, it's like, oh, that's freaky. Okay, what's going on here? But it's interesting because people would tell me these things. "Hey, I saw this lady. She was in the mirror. I saw this lady over in the corner. I saw this lady, right behind us. I saw, this reflection." And you would just have to go, "Oh, really?" And I mean, I believe them because
Mm.
obviously I was on the ship and I'd had other encounter stuff, but I never ever saw this ghost, and it was driving me nuts. And I remember one time this lady had told me, she goes, "Hey," she goes, I think I just saw someone over here. Are we the only ones in this room?" And I was like, where do you see it?" And I'm like, every single time I heard someone, like they saw someone, I'm like, "Was it a lady in white?" They're like, "How'd you know?" And I'm like, let's talk about ghost stories." So the thing is that no one really knows her background. And that's the thing about the Queen Mary, is that some people know the background stories of these ghosts, but there's a lot. And there's the unfortunate thing, and this has kind of come out, and some of these have been debunked, but there's talk about murders that happened on the ship, and
Mm.
people that were shot or killed, but a lot of them have not been founded at all. And so and even some of these stories, like the one I told you, people don't always get it right. But I was talking about how previously, you go into this room and there would be a you know um what was it? Like a ship's officer, and he would just float over the bed or appear in the bed, or he would be on his back floating and go through the walls. And sometimes he would be on his back and then flip over above you and scream, and people would just freak out. Those things. Well, his whole background was that he snuck into another ship's officer's room and stole what he thought was alcohol, and it turned out to be shoe polish, and he died. So that's the ghost you see there. So it's crazy when you hear these stories, and if you know the background, it's great. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of truth in some of those stories you hear about that, especially ones about murder or anything like that. So the last story I have is about the most haunted room aboard the ship, and that's B340. You guys can go on TikTok, you can go on to YouTube, you can find all sorts of stories about this room, people trying to stay there. So the crazy thing, and I actually have some experience in this room. The weird thing is, and actually I'll share this with you first before I tell you my story, but we had a guest in 1966 when the ship was still sailing who reported that she was sleeping and her covers were being tugged away from her, and she would tug them back, and then she feel them tug away again, she tug them back, and then apparently the blankets or the comforter were ripped off of her, and she would see this like a ship's officer at the end of the bed, and sometimes the ship's officer just stared and sometimes it screamed. But that was one of the first reportings of this room kind of being just bizarre. But no one knows really why there's so much activity in this room. But it was so bad, even when they brought the ship into the port of Long Beach, that literally people hated going to that room because either doors would slam, portholes would open, and literally these portholes are pretty hard to open sometimes. So literally you would see these things happening, and people would just get so freaked out. We had employees that would refuse to go in there and clean the rooms. One of the biggest issues we had, and this is where my story comes in, is that I would take tours into this room. We didn't always get the key to this room. Again, it was whatever was available. But I always liked going to this room because it was a lot of fun to go into. And one of the things that would happen all the time is, so the room was still made up like it was in the 1960s when it finally ended. Well, actually 1970 is when it ended, or actually 1969. Sorry. So it was still made up like it was normally, but what would happen is those blankets I was telling you about, like the comforter and everything, they'd be thrown onto the floor. They'd be in with the pillows. And every time someone would go in there and fix it, it would get all messed up again. So the employees were like, I'm sick and tired of going there and fixing this for the tours. This is ridiculous. So I walk in there one day, and there was only a handful of tours. It wasn't a very busy day at all. And I happened to see everything's fine and whatnot. No problems on this tour. We leave. One other tour went in there, and then I had another tour. And then we go in there, and everything is just disheveled. And it's like the room looked like a mess. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And they're like, yeah, what did you do? And I'm like, I didn't do anything, and I proceeded to tell them about the ghost stories that happened in this room. And so they thought I played a trick on them because we walk in, now there's sheets and blankets and pillows on the floor and stuff. And I was like, no, this is not, I didn't do this, and I don't know what happened, but it must be the ghost. And they were like, really? And I'm like, yeah, that must be the ghost. And so I left, and I told the other tour guide, or asked her, I said, hey, did you have any issues with that room when you went in there? She goes, no, it was fine. And I go, well, let me tell you what happened. And she was like, oh, no way. So we go back up there to check it out. And the other thing, and you'll hear this from time to time from people who have stayed in that room or have gone to this room, and that you'll hear banging on the door, or you'll hear loud noises inside. And as we're walking up, we hear these really loud noises, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I didn't know that these noises would happen. I knew that things would happen. It was almost like a poltergeist type thing where, things would be on the floor, but I didn't see them happening. But here we hear these noises, and we go up, and the door is literally shaking, and we're like, what the heck? And we open the door, and nothing's happening in there. So we're like, okay, well, that was really weird. And then we shut the door and we leave, and we're walking down the hallway, and you hear noises again. So we go back to it, and we open the room. Nothing. So it's just one of these really weird rooms where just things happen all the time. It got so bad that the employees refused to go into the rooms. No one wanted to go in anymore. People were getting really tired of it. So they
Wow.
finally decided, you know what, maybe if we just get rid of all the furniture and everything there, maybe the ghost will go away, right? Let's go ahead and do it. So they did. They gutted the whole entire room. I mean, everything. They took out the tile, they took out everything. It just looked terrible. And ironically, stuff still happened. You would hear noises, the door would shake. I mean, all sorts of things would still happen. So then they decided at the Queen Mary, you know what, maybe we'll open this up again, because people kept asking, can we stay in this room? And they're like, no, we don't let anyone in this room anymore. I mean, it was so bad that tour guides and employees just refused to go into this room, even after it had been gutted. That's how bad it was. So Queen Mary decided, we're going to go ahead and we're going to capitalize on this because of the ghost stories and everything. They refurnished it, and now you can't go back into the room. I want to say it was 2018. They actually refurbished the room, and you can stay it. I don't know why you want to stay in it unless you really want to try to experience something. But the funny thing is, not everyone experiences something, right? A lot of people have. Again, you can see some of these stories, and some of them are kind of similar to what I talked about the noises and the banging and stuff like that. But it's cool knowing that you can rent this room out if you want to. I wouldn't, but you
We
can.
got a short of it. It's in our shorts on our channel. It was in October, and they just had like plexiglass in the doorway, so you couldn't go in, but you could see the whole room for the most part.
Oh, okay. So they're not renting out anymore then. It's just they
Maybe
were
just
for a while.
maybe when it's not being rented, they have it like that. And then if you rent it, then of course the door would be closed for privacy purposes. But yeah, you were able just to walk right up and look in. You couldn't walk in because it was plexiglassed. But he got some footage, and I made a quick short of it real quick. It's in our shorts.
Anything happen while you're there though?
I didn't notice or feel anything. It felt a little eerie and creepy. There was something like I didn't see anything physical move or nothing like that. Like it's definitely staged. It looks it's got a good presentation, so it's ready to be for someone to spend the night in there, if you will. But like she was saying, you can't go in, you can just look at it. And sure enough, when we were there were several other guests going, oh, there's that room, let's go take a look at it.
It was real active Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were still. I thought they were, but if they're not anymore, that's fine too. Maybe people got tired of trying to stay in the room. Personally, me, if you're going for a ghost experience, great, but I would be like, I'm paying to sleep.
Right. Yeah.
I'm paying for a ghost tour then.
Definitely rent it for investigative purposes, but then that would be like an all-night affair, a long night, lots of coffee, with no intentions of sleeping. So I wouldn't be comfortable to sleep in there.
No.
I don't know if I would be able to sleep anywhere on the ship.
On the Queen, any room for that matter, just knowing its
Or
history.
Just even curiosity. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would want to investigate.
Yeah. It's funny. Maybe just because I know that ship so well and I spent so much time on it, but even when I go like for the haunts and we go down to the boiler rooms, things like that, it's funny because it doesn't really scare me because I'm so used to it, because I was used to going to those scary areas of the ship and whatnot. But I love the history, and I love everything that has to do with that ship. But walking around, and then what gets me is when I go to the areas where I had experiences with people, I always remember those, and you recall them right away, and you're like, oh, I remember I was here and this is what happened. I mean, those kind of get my blood going a little bit, and I'm like, ooh, heart's racing there because I remember what happened here. But it's great having those experiences, but at the same time, it's like, ooh, I never thought that was going to happen. So, and again, if you haven't seen the first time I was on Living Dead Fam, everyone who's watching, please go back and check it out, because there's other ghost stories that I talked about that were, really cool. And it was all Queen Mary. So, but yeah. Have you guys ever taken the ghost tour that's there at the Queen Mary?
I don't recall if I have ever. Have
I
you done
think
it?
so, but I think I was like 18, 19 years old. It was a really long time ago.
Okay.
And they have like there's special effects on that
Yeah.
tour, right? Like not like jump scares, but some visual and some lighting effects to accompany the
Yeah.
tour. Right.
Yeah, they did. The last time I took the tour, it was interesting because my friend, it was his birthday, and he wanted to go and celebrate his birthday by going on the ghost tour at the Queen Mary. And so they wanted to tell the guide that night, hey, this guy used to work here. I said, don't tell him anything. I want to hear their ghost stories. I want to hear their versions. I want to see if they get the stories right, all that stuff. And so I never said anything the whole entire night. And they're like, did that really happen? Every time they hear a story, did that happen too? And I tell them what my experience was and how, it was for me. But I remember one time, and you guys are gonna like this. So my friend, he's not very I guess he's not much of a believer when it comes to the ghost stuff. So they did take us down to the boiler room and they put us in one room where they kind of, call out to the ghosts and see if anyone, anything comes out. And my friend was, I had no idea this was happening, but he's, next to me going, do you believe this? I'm like, shh, be quiet, let's listen. So we're listening, and all of a sudden you hear this. What the heck is that? Everyone's looking, what's happening? What's going on? And we were kind of getting freaked out because like, ooh, that sounds spooky. And they're talking to, what they think is the ghost and whatnot. And you keep hearing these noises, and then you hear a clank, and then you hear a bang, and you're like, wait, that was next to me. What's going on here? Long story short, we get out of the room, and everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened and everything. My buddy turns to me and goes, that was me. And I'm like, what are you serious? He goes, I wanted to see what they did. I'm like, oh man, that's a bummer. Everyone thought they heard or, had a ghost experience, and you're in there, causing trouble. And so, yeah, but long story short, in the end, as we were finishing up the tour, one of them told the guide, oh yeah, this guy used to work at the Queen Mary, and he's got some good stories, and he's got some similar ones, and he's got some better ones. And so the guy was like, can I contact you? Can we talk? I'm writing a book right now. I'm like, sure, no problem. But unfortunately, COVID happened right after that, so we lost contact. But it was really interesting. I like going on the tours like that, even if you don't experience anything. If you hear about it, it's just like going, ooh, that actually happened here. That's kind of cool. That's interesting. So to me, it's all about, hearing the ghost stories and being able to, share them with, others around you. And it's cool because it's like when you go on those ghost tours in Orange County or something like that, you may not see anything, but hearing those stories, you're like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Ooh, I want to hear more. And it just kind of draws you into the whole paranormal. So
Wow.
It was really neat. Yeah, with the nostalgia you just feel immediately going on this ship. It's neat to hear the stories like this today, and then when you go on next time, it somehow makes it a little more personal because now you feel like you've got a little know about the things, and to hear from someone like you, someone who spent so much time on that ship and has these stories, we know, love, and trust you, so it makes it so much more real. It's not just listening to a story from an unknown. It's so much different when it's someone you trust that tells you the story, and so you take it more to heart. Then when you visit the ship, it really just kind of replays for you, but now you've got the physical example of where the things happened, and that's what makes that so neat. It would really be cool to go there with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be like, this is the Queen Salon. Martini room's over here. You want to go? 40 is over here. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have so much fun, roaming that ship, and it is fun. I enjoy it and walking around. Like I said, I love the history about it. And if you guys know me, I love talking about history stuff, especially when it comes to theme parks and Disney. But roaming that ship that had so much history and learning about it, and then being able to experience some of those crazy, ghost stories, whether I saw something or someone told me they saw something on my tour. And the funny thing was that you never really, when we do these tours, we never really start with any ghost stories or anything like that. Sometimes people bring it up. Is this really the most haunted, hotel in all of America, on the ship? And then you kind of start bringing things up. But most of the time, you talk about the history and everything. And then every once in a while that ghost story get brought up. Or if it was a haunted area, you'd always tell the ghost story maybe as you're going into it or something like that. And it was always fun because it added to the tour. And if you guys ever have a chance to take, one of the tours, I encourage you to do so. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great history and information about that ship. But at the same time, it's also kind of fun and spooky. So
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that she's back. After the pandemic, and then it was kind of quiet for a year during spooky season. And then when it came back last year, I think there was some ownership changes. Once it got taken back over by the city of Long Beach, it was kind of the unknown, what's going to happen. And it's been such a landmark through all of our lives. It's been there longer than most of us have. And to think of it getting in worse shape and maybe even eventually needing to be removed, the joy of hearing that they were going to open it back up and the tours were starting. And then even better than that was Dark Harbor coming back last year.
Yeah. What, you didn't like the Shack-tacular thing or whatever they called it? What was it called?
Shacktoberfest.
I'm like, are we doing fun, silly stuff now or not the Dark Harbor? What the heck?
Whatever makes the almighty dollar. But I'm glad it sounds like a well-known, versed haunt, if you will, a place that puts on these events, came in and used their know-how to help out the queen. And that's probably just what it took. I don't know that it's something the city council can necessarily really put together. You got to put the people in the places to make the moves. And I think they did that with a successful haunt business. I guess we'll see here as the months come along, whether that'll take place or not. We'll find out how successful it was here in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, shall we move on to personal stories?
Chomping at the bit.
Real quick, who else we got? I got Change. We got Mitch's Adventure, Miss Garcia. We got MH Reels. Don't forget, guys, it's not just we got ghost stories from our friends and family here in the community. That's you guys as well. If you guys have any experiences, past, present, or whatever, whether it's ghosts or cryptids or heck, even UFOs, right? All that crazy stuff is happening. We want to hear your stories and we want to showcase your stories right here on our live stream. You don't have to be on the live with us, but we would love to read back your personal accounts. Please feel free to email us at livingdeadfamily@gmail.com so we can start building up some episodes for you guys and we can share your personal accounts with everyone else here as part of the Living Dead fam. So we got a few of you guys. I'm seeing a few of you guys here in the chats. You guys got a few ghost stories. So please, we want to hear that from you guys.
So Mitch's Adventures, he has his own channel too, by the way. He just hit 2,000. Mitch actually has some, and he's sharing some of his ghost stories here, but you might want to talk to him sometime because I believe the apartment that he lives in right now is haunted.
Mitch, we would love to have you on or email us your ghost stories, either or would be fantastic. That would be incredible.
Well, I mean, look at this one. When I was growing up, the house.
Stories.
What's that?
Christina H says she has some creepy stories.
Oh, there you go.
Let's do it, folks.
I like what Mitch wrote. Sorry. When I was growing up, the house we lived in had 60s wood paneling in the TV room, and you could see evil faces in the wood.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one.
We want that story, Mitch. We need to hear more of that. Pretty please. That is awesome. Well, that was just the Queen Mary, guys. We got more ghost stories right here. So don't go anywhere. We got Bob from BerryPlace28 giving us his ghost stories, not only from the Queen Mary, but also from his own recent personal accounts. So we cannot wait to hear about that. You got anything else, Linda, Mom?
I think when he gets going, I know we'll get to a part where maybe we're talking about some kitchens and whatever, and then I think I'm going to join in and share some personal accounts as well. Some you guys have probably heard us say before, but I know we've got a lot of new ears in here, and some of the stories are a little older, so we can rehash those definitely. So I know he's got some from years ago, and some, like he said, as recent as this last week, which is,
Yeah.
and it's a crazy one.
I cannot wait to hear this one. I'm so excited.
So 7 years. Oh wait, that's too far back. Well, so this is the first I guess paranormal activity I ever experienced. I have no idea if my dad's watching, by the way. I haven't seen him or my brother in the chat, but this was kind of interesting because this was the very first experience I ever had, and I was pretty young. I think it was fifth. I want to say it was fifth grade. Maybe it was sixth, but it goes far back, as you can tell. And I was in the bedroom, and my brother and I shared a bedroom, by the way. And I was sitting at the desk and doing homework, and I kept hearing this noise, and it was driving me nuts. It was kind of like a baying noise, kind of like, but it sounded like something was shuffling or moving, and I'm like, the heck is going on? I thought it was coming from the hallway, so I turn around, look, and see, no, nothing in the hallway. And then I was right next to a window, and I'm looking out the window, and I don't see anything, and it would stop, and all of a sudden I start hearing it again, within 5-10 minutes, and it's going, and it would stop again, and then all of a sudden it would start up. And by this time I was getting really fed up, and I was like, I was about ready to go tell my parents what is going on, right? So the next time it started, I'm looking all over the room because it sounds like it's so close to me, and I can't imagine what is going on. But all I know is I can't do my homework. I'm frustrated. I'm really upset, and I just want this noise to stop. And I happened to look down, and if you guys remember encyclopedia bookshelves,
Yes.
we don't have those anymore. We have what's called the internets now.
We're
But
dating ourselves now.
I know I was old enough to have an encyclopedia bookshelf back in the day. So I looked down, and we had probably, I want to say, it's crazy, we probably had like 40 books, for the encyclopedia. And we had it was a bookshelf that had a bottom and a top half. But the crazy thing was, I found out where the sound was coming from, and every other book on the bookshelf was moving in and out like this. And I was like, what the heck? I was so scared out of my mind. I go running out of the bedroom into the hallway, and I bump into my brother, and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I push him into the room, and I point at the bookshelf, and he sees the books going in and out. They hadn't stopped. They kept going. He runs out and he grabs me, and he's like, are you gonna tell mom and dad? I'm like, I'm not gonna tell mom and dad. And he's like, well, why aren't you gonna tell mom and dad? Well, they're probably not gonna believe us. And she's like, oh yeah, probably. And then my dad, he always, he would probably be like, why aren't you studying? So I actually didn't say anything at all. The crazy thing was, shortly after my brother and I, were standing there, they stopped. And that was the first experience I ever had. And I was like, okay. And the weird thing was, this house was built, I want to say my grandparents were the first owners of this house. And my parents bought it from my grandmother after she had gotten divorced from my grandfather. And so the house was built, I want to say it was it was somewhere around the 1950s, I guess, maybe a little before that. And so, by then it was probably about 30 some odd years old when this happened. 30? Yeah, 35. I'm guessing. And the crazy thing is, to my knowledge and my parents' knowledge, nothing ever happened in that house. There was no, murders. There was no deaths. There's nothing. And so this is kind of weird that, this had happened to me. And I was like, okay, that's really weird. And it never happened again where I saw anything like that in the house. Every once in a while you would hear something and you were like, what is that? But I think it was more of my fear after what had happened than anything else. And then when for many, many years, nothing ever happened. Now, when I joined the Queen Mary, I joined when I was 18 years old. And so it was a year later that I became a tour guide. And so I thought I was cool and I didn't need to go to college. And of course, I moved out and got a roommate who I worked with at the Queen Mary. And we moved into this apartment in downtown Long Beach, which was really, really cool. My grandmother, she also lived in downtown Long Beach, a little ways from me. Unfortunately, she passed away due to heart failure in this recliner that she had. And it was her favorite recliner. And so when she passed away, she didn't have a whole lot, but my parents, said, hey, you just moved to this new apartment. How would you like to have grandma's favorite recliner? I'm like, yeah, I want a recliner. It was not that old. It was only maybe a year and a half old, I think. She loved it. I'm like, she loved it. I'm going to love it. I'll take it. No problem. So I took the recliner and we moved it into, the apartment. Now I'd been in the apartment for probably a good, I think 6 months or so before I got this recliner. And no problems in this apartment. It's always great. I enjoyed living there. And I get the, recliner in there. I'm enjoying it. It's been great, using it and whatnot. And my girlfriend comes over for a date night one night and we have dinner. And then afterwards, we're just sitting in the front room. We were actually sitting on the carpet with our backs to the couch that we had in there. And we're just kind of relaxing and talking. And all of a sudden, we hear this noise. We're like, what is that? And we look over and there's my grandmother's rocking chair. And it's one of these old recliners that rocked. It was not electric. It's one of the ones where you had the handle, you had to flip up, or flip the handle back so you could raise the feet. So there's nothing that would make this thing move, and never had any activity in this house prior to this. So I was like, what the heck? So I get up and I stop the chair, and my girlfriend's looking at me like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, that's kind of weird. And so I sit back down and we start talking, starts rocking again. We're like, okay. And she's like, what's up with this chair? I'm like, I don't know. She goes, this is one you got from your grandmother, right? I said, yeah, it's the one she passed away in. She was like, what? She passed away in it? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you didn't tell me that. I'm like, oh, sorry. Yeah, she did. And I didn't think that she was with us. So this is kind of weird. And so I got up and I stopped the rocking chair again. And I'm like, okay, this is just bizarre. And so she's like, well, is your grandma here? I mean, are you going to talk to her? I'm like, talk to what? There's nothing here, And so I was kind of like freaked out too, because, and here's the crazy thing. We had the lights off in the living room. I didn't tell you that. We had a candle lit, lights are off. We're trying to have this nice, romantic evening in the front room. And all of a sudden the rocking chair starts going again. And I was like, Grandma, are you there? No one says anything. The rocking chair just keeps going. So I stop it, and I sit back down again. And I said, okay, look, anything happens again, we're out of here. And all of a sudden it starts rocking again. So we run out of the front room into my bedroom. She's like, you need to get rid of that thing. You cannot keep that thing in here. And I'm like, it's my grandma's. I can't get rid of my grandma's. She goes, you can get rid of it. I'm like, I can't get rid of this. So I decided to keep it. And my girlfriend thought I was crazy. She was like, why are you keeping this? This is my grandmother's, and it was her favorite rocking chair. But she died in it. I know she died in it, but I want to keep this rocking chair. So I kept the rocking chair. Well, yeah, I kind of wish I hadn't, because soon things would happen in the evening time. It was always evening to nighttime. Never happened during the day or morning or anything like that. But the chair would just start rocking. And the crazy thing is, usually it was a pretty slow rock. Every once in a while, it was a crazy fast rock. But it was always spooky when it happened. And I remember one time we had some friends over and we were just it was just a little get together, have fun, hang out. I think we were playing Uno or some cards or something like that. It starts happening. And they're like, why is a rocking chair moving? Why is the recliner moving? That shouldn't be moving. I'm like, And then my girlfriend's like, it's haunted because Bob's grandmother passed away in it. And my friends are like, are you crazy? Why do you have this thing still? So ironically, I eventually said, I can't keep this thing anymore. It's driving me nuts. And as much as I love my grandmother and the chair that she, adored, it was just too many times where things would, it would just start moving on its own. And I tried talking a couple times to my grandmother to say, "Hey, is that you?" I mean, I know if it was her or some other spirit or whatnot. It was just the weirdest thing because to me, I never got used to it. I thought I
Mhm.
would, but I didn't. So eventually, had to give it up. So yeah, someone
Wow.
else got it, and hopefully they didn't have the same experiences. I have no
And now
idea.
they've got some stories to tell.
Probably, right?
I was
It's like,
wondering how you went about getting rid of it.
yeah,
Physically,
someone's having a garage sale and said
There you
they
go.
would take it off my hands, and I'm like, "Sure." It's almost like the Annabelle doll. "Hey, I
right?
got the doll
That's
for you.
right.
Would you like it?"
The things that have attachments, you never know.
Yeah.
You
You're
never
like,
know.
so I had to give some disclaimers. Make sure you wear gloves, that you have holy water on hand, and that you have
Oh.
sage to burn. No, I'm just kidding. Um, yeah, can you imagine the person be like, "Yeah, I don't think I want this now. I'm good." So
And now who knows? Zach Bagans himself may be coming after that chair.
I know, I know. I mean, I felt really bad getting rid of it. The last thing I want to do is get rid of it.
That's a hard
Unfortunately,
one.
it just, yeah, it was. And also the crazy thing was that I was starting to believe in this, ghost stuff because one, I'd had the experience when I was a kid, and I hadn't had any other real major experiences since that time. And then I was working at the Queen Mary, and I started having paranormal experiences. Hey, maybe the ghosts were following me home for the Queen Mary.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm,
Eh, the
yeah.
ghost will follow you home.
You're
Um,
supposed to
exactly.
do
but
some, protection prayers before you go in the house.
yeah,
Definitely.
well, you and I talked you talked about that. Uh, we may have to, yeah, we may have to do something like that here soon.
Yeah.
So that was my experience with
Wow.
an actual physical thing happening after the books, and so
Now
now
you
I'm like,
never
this is the second
saw
time.
grandma, did you? You just saw the rocking chair. You
Mm,
never saw an apparition of
Right, Wendy
grandma.
girl?
no, never saw
Wow.
her, never saw anyone or anything. It would
Next
just
time that'd be
this thing
great.
would move, and the crazy thing is, you would stop it and it would stay stopped, and then all of a sudden it would start going again, and it would get to the point where, like I said, I thought I would get used to it, and I just didn't. It was unnerving, actually. And I literally would either go to my bedroom and stay there if it was happening, or I would leave the house and go hang out with friends or go do something. I couldn't stay around, and that's what was disappointing, is like, I didn't want to leave, but I felt like I had to because I didn't want to be around, this entity or whatever it was, even if it was grandma. So
Right. And then obviously
so
there's
kind of
no way to
funny.
debunk it as far as like a pet in the house that would like accidentally bump
No,
it or a draft.
no, we had no pets. And the thing is that, like, it was just me and my roommate, and most of the time he was out and about. So a lot of these times it would happen when I'm home by myself or with my girlfriend. He actually experienced it with his girlfriend and had said,
I was
"Hey,
gonna ask about
um,
that.
yeah,"
Did
he
your
actually
roommate
told me, he goes,
experience?
"Hey, your rocking chair was moving the other day, and is it haunted or something? I mean, what the heck? Do we need to get rid
Wasn't
of this
in
thing?" And
it.
I'm like, The thing was, though, is that he traveled. He loved to ride bikes, so he went to Europe for about 3 months, and so
Mm.
he told me, I love it. He's like, "Hey, my girlfriend's going to move in with you while I'm paying for the rent while I'm gone in Europe." I'm like, "Really?" And then she had some experience as well, which I
Oh
thought was
dear.
interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. And she said her and her friends, she would have get-togethers with her friends all the time, and they would talk about, the rocking chair and whatnot. But yeah, that was really kind of just bizarre. And I love my grandmother, but I didn't think I would be followed by her in the afterlife,
Oh,
over to my new apartment. And again, I don't know if it was her or not. All I know is that this thing had a mind of its own, and it would just suddenly start rocking.
It
It
must have
was
been a
just
really
bizarre.
comfortable chair.
It was actually. I loved it. I was very comfortable. And the thing is, like, the handle would never flip, and the footrest would never come up. It would just rock. It was
mhm.
Wow.
just a nice steady rock most times. Sometimes it was a little, crazy, but most time it was just this nice slow rock, and you would stop it, and you walk away, and it wasn't like it would just start right away again. It's not like the building was on an incline and it would just do. I mean, it just would
Right.
slowly start going. And back then we didn't have cell phones, so I go, "Oh, hey, let me go take a picture of this." Um,
True, yeah.
Yeah,
This
that's
is the
true.
early '90s.
I
Right.
think the first time I ever experienced something moving was I think it was between my 8th and ninth grade year, and I babysat for a lady who became a really good friend of mine. Her name was Diane, and her two girls were Alyssa and Lauren. They were 2 and 4 years old. And I spent my entire summer between the 8th and ninth grade year, Monday through Friday, babysitting for these girls. And little by little, as I spent more time there, I could hear things happening, but I was at that point a bit too scared to go investigate. I had seen things before, which is another story, but I'd never really heard or seen physical movement. And every day the girls would take a nap at the same time, and that's when things would get active in the house. And so at that time in my life, I just figured it was a child. And
Oh,
they had in their closet, it was like a ball, but it wasn't perfectly round. It had the flat edges, a ball with edges, right? The flat edges, and you could push whatever the picture was on that part of the ball, and it would make, the lights and the sounds. But it's a ball that shouldn't roll because it's flat on all the parts. It's like whatever, like if you figured an octagon, right? But on all sides. And so they were sleeping and the ball would roll. And when it would roll, it would say, whatever shape or whatever it was on that particular part of the ball. So it would say like red triangle and do some little musical, kind of like VTech noise that we hear the VTech toys say. But I think this was just before VTech. But so whatever it was at that time.
oh yeah.
And I'd heard it like 3 or 4 times. And I thought, well, shoot, I just got these kids down for a nap. It's quiet time, and the kids, they don't get their nap. They get grumpy. Mom and dad get mad. And so finally I walked in there as it was in the middle of moving, and both girls were in cribs. They were sleeping. So it was in their room. It was a toy that had previously been put away in the closet, and it rolled, and it would make a noise of whatever shape or, whatever picture was on that flat surface, it would roll onto, and then it would light up and make noise. And I just was, holy moly. And then it would stop. It wouldn't continuously move, but it's like I caught it in the middle of its movement, because it took some force to get it from one flat surface to the next flat surface. It wasn't a fluid movement like a complete round ball would move. And I think that was the first time I had seen a physical movement from an entity, a paranormal movement, if you will, maybe like your encyclopedia books moving or a chair moving. I think that was the first time I experienced an actual movement, and it got me pretty good.
And there's no pets or nothing in there.
No, they were a
cat to make
pet-free
it
home.
move.
Pet-free home. And it's not even if there was a fan on or an air conditioner on, it wouldn't displace it from
Right.
the spot it settled on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in between spots, because it moved several times, because I could hear it making the noises that married with the movement it made. And finally, as I walked in, was when it was moving, and I just sat there like, so I picked it up, turned it off, put it back into the closet, and then went back into the living room, and it shared the wall with the kids' bedroom. It was just a small 2-bedroom apartment, and I could hear it again. And it was hitting up against the glass, the door, what do you call it? The sliding door. The glass sliding door, as if it wanted out of the closet. I just was like, oh, you're kidding. Oh, you're kidding. And so then I took the batteries out. I had to get a little screwdriver and take the batteries out, and then it finally stopped.
Jeez.
But I had a lot of experiences in that apartment between my 8th and 9th grade year. Yeah, it was crazy.
Creepy.
It was crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay.
Your turn.
Who's ready for another story?
I know. Who else we have here? I've seen, some of you guys are dropping your own little ghost stories here in the
Thank you.
chat. Don't forget,
I
guys,
love
if you don't
seeing
want to type it up, you can always use the cell phone and voice record yourself too. We had a few of you guys that have done that already and send us in your audio version, an audio file of your ghost story, which works just as well. We can play it back here on the live stream for all you guys. So yeah, whatever you guys have out there, this show relies pretty much on you guys. Whatever you guys have experiences in the past, again, anything, ghost stories we've talked about, shadow people, the little black-eyed children. Gosh, the list goes on and on and on. So anything you have out there, please send them to us.
Jordy, I wouldn't say that they cannot overcome missing batteries. I think just in that particular instance, it was for me what stopped it at that point. I do have a story that would go with your question there that would back up that they don't need batteries or to be plugged into a wall.
Interesting.
Yeah. I had a situation with a phone. And then so it was another nap time, and the girls were sleeping, and I think I was playing. It was my introduction to the record player. The homeowners had a record player, and he had like 2 milk crates full of albums that I just came to absolutely love in my teenage years, which included Led Zeppelin and Houses of the Holy, and I mean, just you name it, Black Sabbath and the Doors. And I think I gained a lot of different musical appreciation that summer. But at one point, they had a cordless phone, and cordless phones were fairly new then. You know, they were big and bulky, and kind of big that you would take with you.
Did it have the antenna?
Yes, it had the antenna. It did. It had the antenna.
With the Zach Morris.
It was big, and it was the color cream, and it was on the counter, and it started ringing, and I didn't think anything of it, and I answered it, and no one was there, and so I hung up, and I went back down and sat on the couch, and then it rang again. I got up, I answered it, no one there. At this point, whatever, thinking someone's prank calling or what have you. And that sequence went on, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 or 5. And so finally I unplugged it. I unplugged the phone. And then it still kept ringing regardless of being unplugged from the wall. And then at that point, I called the homeowner. I plugged the phone back in, and I called the homeowner. Her name was Diane, and she could hear the tremble in my voice. I could hardly get a word out. And she said, "What's wrong?" And I told her in the best way I could what had just happened. And she said, "I'll be right there." And then when she came home, she shared with me some of her own accounts of dealing with what she called a little girl. So she knew that I wasn't coming up with this out of nowhere. It was just, so you met her, so you met her. And yeah, I was calling to see if the refrigerator was running, but I was pretty freaked out at that age in my life. That was fairly traumatic for me. And it did.
And you're like, and you didn't tell me about this ghost?
That part. Because I don't know, would I have stayed there all by myself with 2 little ones? I don't know. But there was another occurrence after that was even crazier.
Wow. Yeah. See, I thought when you said, the phone was ringing, that someone answered, said, "Living Dead Mom, you want to play a game?" Oh, no. Sorry, that's Scream. Scream, sorry.
Oh, Scream.
Right. What's your favorite scary movie?
I
Exactly.
need to do that, huh? Make it short.
Well, I'm kind of enticed now to hear what the other more
I
scarier
know.
story was. So,
All right. I'll get them all out of the way here. So another time, I think it was like the final straw. One of the final straws was obviously while the girls were napping, same thing. I would clean up. I would clean up. I would make the bed. I would vacuum. And she encouraged the vacuuming because the point was that she wanted the girls to be able to sleep through noises, that the house wasn't always quiet. So she would say when the girls nap, go ahead and run the vacuum. And then that way they're not such sensitive sleepers because they lived in an apartment. And after like 5 p.m, when everyone starts getting home from work and everybody's kids, it was just naturally loud. And it was not always quiet at night. It was an active apartment complex. It was in the city of, it was right at the borderline of Buena Park and Fullerton off of Stanton and I want to say Artesia, but don't quote me. Maybe a street before Artesia. And so I had vacuumed their room, and it was the vacuuming where you could see the perfect lines in the carpet from the vacuum. And I went to put the vacuum away, and I could see little tiny footprints in the fresh vacuum marks. And I just kind of sat there like, you're kidding. And so I kind of just walked away. I went and got the vacuum again. And then I brought the vacuum back to vacuum again. The bed that I had just made, all of the blankets and sheets were like someone was jumping in the middle of the bed and pulled the blankets into the center of the bed. A bed I had just made. Wow. And that was another time.
That's crazy.
I had to make the phone call and say, you know what?
It's my last day here.
You could hear, I think I was at that point I was probably crying, and she could just hear the struggle in my voice. And now I go seek it out for fun. So I don't know. Is that the way I just kind of overcame?
Cope with it, right?
I was going to say, are you sure you weren't in room B340?
There you go. Yeah,
I know. It was crazy, but I mean, the good part is that she knew I wasn't telling stories. They had their own high level disturbances, and so and she didn't tell me about them prior. So I went to her first, and she was like, "Oh, you met our friend." And so they described it, what they believed was a young child. And I know we spoke a little further about those types of situations. So yeah, it was scary, but I didn't know then about, cleansing and not taking it with me into the next place. And so I do believe that possibly there was an attachment for many years of my life there. Yeah.
It's funny. Mitch was asking, have you ever seen any orbs in your videos? I personally have only, I think it's so funny because when you say orbs, seeing a dust particle might be an orb, in a video or whatnot. But I think I've seen stuff that I couldn't explain, like, is it, a dust particle? Or is it really an orb? I mean, and I know, because orbs come in different forms and different videos. I've seen, videos with orbs in them and stuff like that, but never actually filmed anything that I can honestly say that was definitely an orb. It's like, it looks like one, but I don't know for sure. But it's only happened a couple times. I've never encountered like the orbs that you see or a bunch of them, like a poltergeist or anything like that. I don't know. Have you guys?
You want to do it? Your turn.
Uh-oh.
Which one?
I know. Which one? Probably the Canyon Lake house.
Which time? Which time?
So the short answer is yes. Um, we had when we lived in Canyon Lake off of San Joaquin, we had a house that was it was a 2-level home, but the way it was built was on a hill. So it was a garage and then the house was on top. And we definitely had a lot of activity in that house. And there's the little stories that build up to the big story. And one night, the big story at the very end, there were orbs that went through our house. Now, these weren't the little orbs that you would question as being dust particles on a camera. And unfortunately, we didn't have any cameras going. This would have been like 2011, 10, 11,
Probably 11.
2011. And not only did we see them, but our older girls saw them as well. And it actually came from their room and it went across the living room into our room. And it was right at that point, our girls they shared a room at that point, and they came running behind it to tell us what they had just seen in their bedroom. And that was
They said it was like a glowing ball.
a glowing ball.
A glowing ball floating around their room and out, and they followed it into our bedroom.
It was fast. The whole occurrence was quick, and it seemed like the chaos of the 2 girls running out of their room, to tell us what was happening. It all was so fast, but the tenseness that was in the house while that was happening was extreme. And we were afraid to go home the next day. And it was a bunch of small occurrences happening over the course of 6 months to a year that built up to that night. The girls constantly feeling like someone was in the hallway watching them, or something was in their room, hearing things in other parts of the home, bouncing balls that nothing was bouncing, our cat noticing something and just freaking out at it, but us not seeing what she was seeing. Just so many occurrences built up to that particular night where we finally saw some sort of physical representation to the being, if you will. And it was a good size orb.
Wow.
Energy, and it glowed. And it changed colors. We had seen it once as green, and we had seen it as red. And I don't know if there is a reason for color changes.
And then one time it was so bright. I remember, I think I was working like early.
Whoops. Color changes.
Just like that.
Just like
that. I remember I had left for work and you had messaged me like shortly after I left that you saw, and it was still dark because of the daylight savings or the time change or whatever. It was still dark in the morning. But I remember you saying specifically you saw like this light go
around the edge of the doorway.
Around the edge of the door, super bright light.
Yeah.
But it was still pitch dark outside. So it's probably like that bright orb right at our the threshold of our door right there that lit up the doorway, which was really creepy. So yeah. So long answer. Yeah, we've seen
orbs.
Orbs before.
But not any that I've ever seen when watching someone else's footage. They're usually very small. They're usually like a white-ish or faded white color. They're usually, quick, like
right.
And they may make some other movements, but sometimes it's just, like a, and then that's it. And was it dust? Was it, it's so easy to want to debunk, if you will. Whereas this was what it was. And we went to the church the next night. We gathered at my mom's house, and we were trying to call people that could maybe come help us, someone that could exorcise it out of the house or what have you. And then we ended up going to is it St. Pius?
I think so. Yeah,
St. Pius
the-
Catholic Church
in
off
Buena
of
Park.
Orangethorpe
and
there
Beach.
in Beach and Orangethorpe is
Oh,
where
yeah.
we went. And we waited until after Mass, and we went in and we filled up a water bottle with holy water, and then the priest, he prayed with us after.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went home and we put holy water everywhere, and we just prayed, and then I don't recall having anything happen after that.
Yeah, I think it settled.
I think it
just
settled after that. And we moved shortly after. We were in the process of buying, I think, 2 homes at that point. Life was stressful. And we ended up moving right after Joel was born. He was only like 2 weeks old, I think, when we moved.
And this canyon house is the one that was built on top of the graveyard, right?
This was built on top. Yeah, I know where you're going with this. You would think
it was called Amityville. Is that what it was called?
Amityville.
That's the one.
Yeah, it shook us. I mean, I'm glad we can tell the story now. And we joke because when we first met, he was into going, ghost hunting and doing the things, doing the tours. And I was like, in jest, I was like, well, just stick around. And I tend to have experiences. And so sure enough, I think he got more than he bargained for.
I've stuck around all these years. So we were meant to be.
I know.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
But it's things that you can't just tell anybody. Now we're more open about it. We have a platform where we're more comfortable because we're not necessarily going to you. You guys are coming to us to hear our stories.
Right.
And so I think we speak freely more about it. But honestly, it took me years and years and years to ever share anything from childhood or young adulthood, just because you're so afraid of judgment and people, no, that didn't happen, or okay, I'm just making things up, so, or even like we just shared, the big brightly lit ball of light that went zipping around our house for no reason. It's not easy to just share with people. Now it's getting a little easier. I think that's my second time saying that story on camera, if you will, but I've never really shared that with many people.
I think now it's more mainstream too, with
that part,
social media, and it's current, I think, right now in our time.
Everybody's a paranormal investigator now.
True. It is cool seeing some of the stuff. I mean, I know some of it's like believable, some of it's not believable. When you see some of these things on, the social media challenge, you're just like, wow, really? And then it's funny because I will literally sit in my front room at night and I'll be like, oh, this is cool. Oh, look at that. Ooh, look at this. It's cryptid. Oh, and then I'm like, wait, it's like 1 a.m. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay, let's hurry up and go. It gets kind of spooky and scary when you start watching that stuff.
Yeah.
Cryptids. Ooh, those things get me. I don't know what it is.
Those still definitely have my curiosity and the theories, because we were just talking about this the other day, is it seems like each territory, each cryptid seems to have a territory it encompasses,
Right.
And so how many more are there? It really could be so much more than we even know about. And we actually were hoping to grab some stories from family members, one being his 100-year-old grandmother, who has stories of, what's it called?
The La Lechuza, the Mexican owl witch. Yes.
She has stories from, 80 years ago? 70 to 80 years ago about this cryptid.
Yeah.
And we need to find a way to get her on camera, or someone in the family that has heard these stories that maybe can
but she's centralized. She's very native. This witch, this cryptid is very local to the Texas region, specifically there, like in San Antonio, Texas, and other counties surrounding that, like the outskirts of San Antonio. So, yeah, really creepy stuff. Really, really creepy stuff. I would love to get my 100-year-old grandmother on here and hear her ghost stories, and while we still have her. So,
or you know what, or if you can't have her on live, record and have a meeting with her, and that way you can share it later and edit if you need to. But
absolutely,
how cool that would be. I know that's one of the regrets I have, is that my grandparents, passed away, and I know some stories, and I'm not talking about ghost stories, but history and family stuff and whatnot. And sometimes I go, oh, I wish I would have asked this, So, but it's awesome that you have a 100-year-old grandmother. I had a great grandmother. She said, "I'm gonna live to be 100, years old," and we're like, "Yeah, sure." And she had so many health issues and one thing after another, but she pulled through. She lived to be 100 years old in 3 days, and then she finally passed on. So we called her the stubborn German. She was like, "I'm gonna be here until 100," and we're like, "Okay,
that's right."
Well, I guess I should probably get back into the other stuff. So, before we get into all this, you can actually see my house in the background here, and everything happened here in this house. One of the stories actually happens right back here where my cat condo is. So I'll be talking that in a moment. But before we get into the actual ghost stories, I wanted to share something else with you. So when my wife and I got married, she wanted to live in Anaheim, and we couldn't really find a place that we liked. So we ended up moving to this place called the Camden down in Long Beach on, it's basically like at Pine and Ocean. It's the nearest cross streets. It was right across the street from the old police station, library. And while I was there, I always ran into this, one guy and his girlfriend, and they're always super nice. And one day I'm like, "What do you do for a living?" He's like, "Oh, I'm a psychic medium." I'm like, "Really?" And he probably saw the look on my face, like, really, are you a psychic medium? Is that true? And the funny thing was, I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, long story short, it's his wife now, but his girlfriend at the time and my wife, we all became really good friends and would hang out and stuff. And it was really neat because he got to meet a lot of famous people because he was a psychic medium. And by the way, his name is AJ Barrera, and you can find his website. It's ajbarrera.com. And he does a lot of readings and stuff. And my wife has gone to a lot of his readings, and maybe I'll save those for another story with the Living Dead fam. But basically, we would get together all the time and have a great time. Well, when we finally left Long Beach, we moved out here to Orange County, and we had a housewarming party about maybe I want to say a few months after we moved in. And so we invited AJ and his it was his fiance by that time, and all of our friends and family over to have a great time and check out the house. And we love this house. For those of you who haven't been to my house, obviously a lot of you, we have a huge backyard. It's like about a 5,000 square foot backyard. The house is only a little over 1,000 square feet, but then the front yard is like another almost 4,000 square feet. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of big. So when we were here and we're having the party, AJ says, "Hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'll be right back," because we were drinking and talking. And so he goes to the bathroom and he comes back to me and he says, "Can I talk to you real quick?" I said, "Sure. What's up?" He's like, "Look, I know you guys just moved into this house, and I know that you really like where you're living." He goes, "But I got to tell you, you're going to have some problems here."
Oh,
"Maybe
no.
I'm going to have some problems." He says, I said, "What'd you see? You saw something, didn't you?" He says, "I did." He goes, "I was in the bathroom." And so for those of you who don't know, a lot of psychic mediums see ghosts or the dead through mirrors, and that's how they see them. And he says, "You got some bad spirits here." And I said, "What?" I'm like, "Come on, we just moved to this. How could we really don't?" And he's like, "I'm not trying to ruin your party. I don't want to upset you or anything like that, but you got some bad spirits." And he goes, "When I say bad, they're the worst. You have kid spirits. And we're like, kid spirits? I was like, seriously? They're the worst? And he's like, they're the worst. They're terrible. And obviously some of you may have heard and Living Dead Mom, we talked about this before, but they could be demonic, or they could be, just the kids. You never know. But they tend to be a lot more mischievous than other spirits. And so, and it's funny because he and I had conversations before. We're talking, and he was like, "Oh yeah." I remember one time they were staying in a hotel, and they invited us to go swimming with them because they weren't far away. I think they were going to Disneyland. It was one of the hotels down the street from Disneyland. He was talking about some experiences he was having there, and I'm like, "Oh really?" And it was always neat to talk to him about experiences. And but for him to tell me, "Hey, sorry to tell you this, I know you just moved to this house, but you've got some bad spirits." And we're like, I told my wife, and I was like, I can't believe this. And she's like, well, have you experienced anything? Oh, I haven't experienced anything. Okay. Well, the whole reason why we moved out to Orange County is because we wanted to find a house, and we wanted to, start a family and have kids. We ended up having, Ariel. Obviously, she's the only one we have. And I want to say that Ariel was probably about 2 years old or so when we finally started, experiencing some activity. So it was probably a good, it was probably a good 3 years that we were in the house and nothing had happened. So I thought, AJ's pulling my leg, or, maybe they're not here anymore. I don't know. And so what happened was, I was standing in the kitchen over here, and I was, washing my hands, and I happened to, turn around to grab a paper towel and dry off my hands. And as I turn around, I see this ghostly figure of this little girl. She looked like she was maybe from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And the crazy thing is her ghostly form was sepia color. So it was kind of like that brownish color. And I was like, what the heck? I mean, as soon as I saw her, almost within seconds, she disappeared. And I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
what the heck was that? So I was like, I need to tell my wife about this. So the next day, Maria comes to me and she goes, hey, I got to tell you something. I'm like, what's that? She's like, well, it's in my room, or our room, day before yesterday. And I saw a ghost. I'm like, what do you mean you saw a ghost? So she tells me her experience is almost the same experience I had, except for it wasn't the little girl. It was I think it was a boy ghost. And it was like, well, I've got a story to tell you. So I told her what happened to me, and she's like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So Maria was really kind of unnerved by this. And she's like, this is not cool. We have a brand new, family. I don't want any spirits here. I don't want to deal with this. Immediately we had some holy water. She grabbed some holy water, kind of sprayed around the house, and we did a prayer, and she's like, I'm gonna go buy some sage and burn that and see if that works and whatnot. So we did a couple of those. I remember one day I came home from work. She's like, I did a whole cleansing. This place is gonna be great now. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. But unfortunately, that was not the case at all. In fact, what we're gonna get away from the kid ghosts for just a moment, because my mom passed away in 2015, so it'll be 10 years this April 20th. And so this is another little ghost story that happened here. So unfortunately what happened was she went into a diabetic coma, and when she woke up from the coma, she had brain damage, and they said she's got a quality of life. So you can either pay to keep her in a convalescent home and keep her alive, but she's got a quality of life. She also had to go through kidney dialysis. She had pulmonary hypertension. She's had a lot of health issues. It was going to cost us a lot of money. And, we put her into hospice. And so her best friend, who was a nurse, said, look, I know this is a tough decision, but ultimately hospice is the best thing to do. So I asked my wife, can we please bring my mom home so that she can be in hospice here at our house? And so she said yes. So we brought her home on a Saturday, and ironically, right behind me over here, so right about this area right here where I'm pointing, was the hospital bed in our living room. And she was in that bed, and unfortunately she was only there for literally, it was like just over 48 hours. She was gone by Monday, I think 3:30 in the afternoon. And so it was a really, tough, day for me. And it was even tougher because right after my mom passed away, my dad ended up in the hospital because he had a issue with his foot because he was diabetic. And so my wife and I were trying to, finalize everything. And then we got everything finalized. And Apria was the company that actually had brought over the hospital bed for my mom. And I think by this time my dad was out of the hospital. We were just waiting for the funeral service to happen. I think the coming weekend. And my dad and I went to go run out to, take care of some things before the funeral. So when I got home, my wife Maria said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I said, "What?" She goes, "I saw your mom." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "I was in the house and I was vacuuming, cleaning, and I went to open up the blinds, these blinds behind me. And when I opened up the blinds and I went to open the door, I saw your mom." I'm like, what did you see? And she says, she was floating above the ground and she was skipping towards me. And she was like carefree, like not a care in the world. And as she started coming towards me, all of a sudden my wife said she blinked her eyes like, is this really happening? And then when, she looked again, my mom disappeared. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I never experienced and never saw my mom's, ghosts or figure or anything like that. But my wife, she believed in the paranormal and obviously we both had, experiences here in this house. But it made me feel happy knowing that she was free now because of all the issues she had. And by the way, she was in a nightgown, so like a hospital gown when my wife saw her. So it's just crazy to hear stories like that. And I was kind of in disbelief. I was like, wow, really? And it made me feel good knowing that, she got to see her one last time. I kind of felt bad that I didn't get to, but how cool is that, she came and kind of like said goodbye to my wife. And that was neat. And the crazy thing is this is 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This is during the day. She was in the backyard, coming toward the house. That's the interesting thing. So it was just unbelievable. And then let's go back to the kids. Well, right after that, my daughter was about 3 years old and she loved to play behind the Christmas tree. And so where the cat condo is right now, that's where we put our Christmas tree sometimes. Sometimes put over here, sometimes we put it over here in this area. But we like to put it in that corner. Well, Ariel's loved to go behind the Christmas tree and she would poke her head out through the branches and we're like, get out from the Christmas tree. You're going to step on the presents. You're going to, toss some ornaments off the tree. You're going to ruin something. And we're always telling her, stop, stop, stop. And she always thought it was funny too. I don't know why she thought it was funny. So one evening I'm at the kitchen sink and I hear Ariel again, right behind the Christmas tree. And I'm like, Ariel, stop. She wouldn't stop. So I turn around and I yelled at her to get, from behind the Christmas tree. And all of a sudden, this kid's face comes right through the Christmas tree. And it's not Ariel. And I was kind of freaked out. It was just the crazy. And it was the same little girl that I'd seen before who was in that sepia color. And I just was shocked. And almost as soon as I saw her and she disappears, Ariel yelling from her room. She goes, "Daddy, are you calling me?" And I'm like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "In my bedroom." Nice. So Ariel was down the hall in her bedroom, and I thought it was Ariel behind the tree, and it was this little girl's ghost. I mean, it was just the craziest thing too, because when the ghost came through the tree, and the branches, just kind of like Ariel would stick her head through the branches, it was almost like this kind of evil little grin. And then it was like, oh, okay, that is not my daughter. And it was
man,
it was also kind of just scary and freaky. So
scary and freaky.
What do you think my wife did? Cleansing again. So yeah, that happened again. And then nothing happened for quite a while until a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So I was, and I don't know why, but it always seems to happen either here in the front room or over here in the kitchen area. And I'm sitting at my dining room table, by the way, if you're wondering, like, what is Bob sitting at right now? So I was over at the sink and I was washing some dishes. And while I was washing dishes, you know how someone comes up behind you and kind of hits your calf or your knee and kind of goes in? You're like, what the heck? Your friends always do that when you're younger, or,
Mhm.
your older friends who still, like to have fun. Well, that happened to me. And I was like, what the heck? I'm like, who? And I'm looking around like, who just hit my leg? I mean, that's weird. Okay. I'm thinking, we haven't seen any ghosts in a long time. We haven't had any activity in a very long time. So, okay, I'm just going to chalk it up to that was weird. All right. It wasn't a leg reflex. It wasn't anything like that. I mean, literally something, had touched me in the back of my, calf and knee area. So then the following week, which was not last week, the week before, I was sitting on my couch over in this area and I was watching TV on that TV right there. Whoops, that TV. And I happened to, I was kind of getting bored with the channel I was watching. So I decided to pick up the remote and kind of flipping through the channels. And all of a sudden, let me see if I can show you guys, but as I'm holding it towards the TV, all of a sudden I feel something just hit right here in my arm. And literally it hit it so hard that the remote goes flying out of my hand. And I was like,
Wow.
what the heck? I'm like, okay, this is not a coincidence. This is the second time I've been physically touched. And in all the other ghost stories I've told you about, I've never ever been physically touched by anything or anyone. It's always you see something, you hear something, something.
Mhm.
I've never ever had anything like that. And I was getting a little worried, like, okay, this is a little too weird. So I didn't say anything to Maria. I didn't want to freak her out or anything like that. Didn't want to have to go through the whole holy water and sage stuff again. But I went to Disneyland on Sunday, as most of you know. I did a rope drop to about a 5 p.m. stream, and then I went home so I could have dinner with my family. On the way home, I stopped at Panda Express. I got a bowl for my wife and a bowl for my daughter, and I got I was starving by that time, so I got the three entree plates, and I'm like, I'm gonna scarf on this food. And Dad's like, yeah. So
Correct.
I think I got a couple orders of orange chicken and
Yes.
and a Beijing beef, I think is what I got with
There
chow
you
mein. So Marie and Ariel, they just had bowls, so they finished their meals really quick. So when Ariel was done, she went to her bedroom, and Maria was doing some dishes, and we were talking and whatnot. At one point, I was just sitting here in the chair, just like this, my arms down to the side, and I'd stuck my chopsticks into my chow mein because I wanted to make sure the chopsticks don't fall out. And the worst thing is when you have chopsticks that fall out and fall on the floor, and you got to get some new chopsticks or something, or wash them. So I happen to be talking to her, and my wife starts walking right towards me. And as she's walking towards me, all of a sudden the two chopsticks are in, and they're stuck in my chow mein. All right. They all of a sudden, it's almost like someone went bam, hit them really hard, and they flew into my chest, hit my stomach, and then fell down and out to the floor. And I was like, what? And Maria goes, why would you do that? Wait, she suddenly realized I didn't do it. And it was funny too, because she was like, why would you do that? Oh, you didn't do that. And I'm like, we need to have a talk because I didn't do that. And this is the third experience I've had in 3 weeks now. I've had something happen every single week for the last 3 weeks. And so I told her what had happened previously at the sink, while I was watching TV. And now the chopsticks. The cool thing was she saw these and she was like, that was so crazy. I cannot believe I literally saw these chopsticks. It looked like someone had like hit him really hard, some invisible force. They went flying towards your chest. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that is crazy. So it was really, really weird to have that experience. And I'm glad that my wife was there because she saw something happen and she saw my hands were, on the side. I didn't even have my arms crossed. They were to the side, and it was these chopsticks go flying out of the chow mein. I mean, I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not eating anymore. I'm good.
Right.
So I told her what happened, and immediately she went and got the holy water. And unfortunately, we didn't have a whole lot left. So she had to make a trip to St. Boniface to go get some more holy water. But
Mhm.
yeah, and the crazy thing was I hadn't told Ariel about anything either. So Ariel hears us talking. She's like, "What are you saying? What's going on? Daddy's talking. Is that ghosts?" And so I decided to tell her, not a good idea. She got really scared and freaked out. So now she doesn't even want to listen to me talking about the ghost stories tonight, because she's been kind of scared ever since I told her about what had happened last few weeks. But to me, that was just bizarre. And Living Dead Mom and I were talking about this the other day, and it's a totally different level when things get physical.
Absolutely.
And they can, I mean, I've seen the stories and whatnot of things happening. So we're hoping that we'll do it again, the holy water stage, all that stuff, prayers like crazy. And to be honest with you, like I said, we hadn't had any experiences, nothing since right after the Christmas tree incident. That was the last time. And Ariel was 3, and she's, I don't want to say how old she is now, but she's definitely getting to be a young teenager. So it's been several years, and we haven't had any activity. So we thought, oh, we're good, but apparently not. And you never know. I mean, is it a different entity? Is it still the same kids or ghosts? I haven't seen any apparitions of the kids or the little girl since the Christmas tree incident. So it just kind of makes you wonder what's happening, what's going on. And it's Ariel just walked in. Hey, Ariel, you want to hear some ghost stories?
Poor thing. She's
wearing headphones. She's got wearing headphones. Ghost stories. You want to hear some ghost stories? Oh, she's like, I know, I heard you.
I might have some resources for you, some things to take home, and I'll give you some instructions on what to do with them, so you can tidy up that situation.
Yeah, definitely.
It should be done. It may take a little bit more than the holy water and sage. Get you some black salt and some other stuff too.
Did you say black salt?
Yeah, it's there's some I think you might call them like metaphysical stores. I know we have one in Temecula, and they will sell things that will help with that. So one thing we do when we do a cleansing is we will salt the entire perimeter of the house. I mean, the entire, from one property line to another, of course, and pray over it. And that's another thing that you can do. It's a course of several different things, but it's getting you the right tools to do those things. So I will make a stop at the store, and I might have some here. Actually, I just don't know with your size lot that I would have.
It's huge.
Enough. Yeah, I don't know with your size lot that I would have enough. So I might need to go get some more. So we can talk further off camera about that.
Okay, so I'm superstitious. Am I throwing salt over my shoulder first?
No, it's no superstitious stuff. Not regular table salt. Not regular table salt. Yeah. Kind of goes in line with the sage and stuff like that.
Well, those are my stories, and I'm sticking to them.
Awesome.
I do have one other thing that I'd like to share, and it has nothing. Well, it has to do with my dad, not necessarily me, although I am in this story. And I thought you guys would like to hear it. And it's kind of a story from beyond. So for most of you guys know that my dad is a Vietnam vet, and he was in the Vietnam War. So I was born at the Fort Ord base in Monterey. And when I was born, his favorite story is I was born for $12.95 because he was in the military. And then my brother was born for $4,000. But the thing was that because my mom was expecting me, he was not forced to go overseas until I was born. And then once I was born, they shipped him out about a month later. So when my dad went to Vietnam, he was caught in crossfire and he was shot several times. They brought him back. He was having kidney failure. They were trying to keep him alive. And at one point, he hears them, "We're losing him." And he remembers seeing this playground. And this playground had this gate in front of him, like a fence. This fence went sky high. I mean, miles high and miles wide. There's no way to, climb it. There's no way to walk around it. And on the other side of this fence in the playground was my mom holding me as a baby. And he said that he wasn't sure what to do. And I guess my mom was waving for him to, come here, come here. And he said that he decided to walk through the fence. And as he walked through the fence, he heard the doctor say, "We're bringing him back." So he literally died for 2 minutes on the operating table, and they were able
Wow.
to bring him back to life, which is great. But that was his experience when he died for those 2 minutes. Is that
Wow.
he was on this playground and he had no way. He wasn't even sure how he was going to get to my mom and me, but he decided to walk through the fence and he made it. So
Wow.
it's really interesting hearing those types of stories.
NDEs,
When
near-death
people,
experiences.
Yeah.
yeah, those near-death experiences and whatnot. But that was the first time I'd ever heard a paranormal, type story or from beyond type story. And I'll
Wow.
never forget that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting when you hear things like that. So, and by the way, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my stories tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed them. And I was
I
enjoying reading some of the stories that we had in the chat. And then, of course, your stories, Live and Dead Mom.
know. There's so much to catch up on in the chats. We
Mhm.
typically like to go back and look at them. But to reiterate, if any of you in here right now have stories that you'd like to share, you can write into us. You can send us a voice recording. You can be on just like this. Whatever level of comfort works for you. You don't have to be on camera. Um, you can have your story shared however is comfortable for you. So send those to our email or let us know in our email how you would want to do that. We do plan on getting back on track with our ghost story nights roughly every 2 weeks. And then we'll have our fogcast we're going to be putting in there as well. But Bob, the last time we met with you, it just was amazing. You really know how to share a story. I wish I had even half of the ability that you have to share the stories that we have. And you keep us engaged and tuned in, and we're so grateful for you to come spend your time with us here. We can't thank you enough. Can you share with everyone here? I think everyone pretty much knows, but for those that aren't in the chat, would you share how they can find you, Bob?
Sure. So you guys can find me at BerryPlace28 on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. And don't forget, you can also find me over at Park Streamers Hangout, or it's actually Park Streamers on YouTube. We also have the parkstreamers.com website. We got some really cool articles that we just put up there. So you can find me there. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me in the parks when you can. If you're new and you've never seen me before, well, please come hang out with me. It's always a lot of fun. I think I'm going to be back on Sunday at the park, and I'm looking forward to being there. But it's always a pleasure to see you guys in the park. I really enjoy hanging out with you. In fact, I got to tell you, it was a blast hanging out with you that one Saturday when we
We
were
had
on the
so
Haunted
much
Mansion and
fun.
all that stuff. It was great. So thank you for taking the time to hang out with me that night, and it was a blast. And I hope we
Thank
can
you for
do it
hanging out
again.
with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Vice
absolutely.
versa.
It was good to spend time. Good to spend
Absolutely.
time. Hopefully we can again soon. I know this guy works on Sundays. Usually his long days are Sundays, but we will definitely catch up again soon. We'll sync our calendars and figure out what works best.
Well, if I have one request
Yes.
tonight to everyone in the chat, please check out Living Dead Fam and give them a follow. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like
Thank
button tonight.
you.
I think right now, let's see, I got to refresh my page, but we have, let's see. Oh, we have 69 likes. There we go. So definitely, come. What's that?
I said, yay, thank you for all the likes.
So definitely, and if you didn't get a chance to watch this whole episode, definitely, definitely watch the replay when you get a chance, because it definitely helps out the Living Dead fam and the channel.
Hey, Jim, welcome in.
Yes, and thank you for everyone that's come from Bob from BerryPlace28. Thank you guys. Welcome in. Hopefully you guys will join us again in our future live streams or vlogs or whatever have you. And like I said, we do spooky year round here, whether it's right here from our home or out and about. We'll be doing Creep IE Con coming up
Creep IE is on Saturday.
this Saturday. So we
Ooh.
find all the spooky events to go to
Mhm.
throughout the year. So not just during spooky season, but we try to keep you guys updated year on. If you're not following us on Instagram as well, Living Dead Mom's really great about keeping the community updated on all the fun, spooky things from movies to theme parks and everything in between. So make sure you guys follow
Instagram,
us.
TikTok, Facebook.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I share a lot of the events on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think that's where most of that information is easiest to obtain. Well, Bob,
Thank you, Bob.
so much. Have a good evening.
you're
We
welcome.
definitely need to chat further though, about what's going on there, so we don't have any more stories to share.
Well, I think I might be able to pull out a couple of other things later. We'll have to talk. That's in relation to my friend AJ Barrera, because my wife has had the chance to go see him. And if you guys are curious about psychic mediums, not just trying to promote AJ, but you can check out anyone. But he does readings, group readings, and they're always fun to go to because he's actually seen or had contact with some of our relatives that passed away. So maybe we'll have to do another show in the future on that. Or hey, I know, maybe we should have another episode where we talk about all the fun ghost stories of Disneyland or the theme parks or the deaths that have happened. Oh, did I say deaths?
We did do one last Friday. We did share a story, a little bit of a darker side, towards the end of our live about a death that occurred on property there. So yeah, I'm still feeling it out how it was received, but we'll see. I don't think we'll do it every time, but we'll sprinkle them in here and there.
It's more of a pay our respects to those that we have
Right.
lost there at that theme park. So
Definitely.
It's unfortunate that things happen, but we also want to give our respects and to the families and anyone that's loved them. Because they're
share
no
about the
longer with us.
people.
Yeah.
Say their name.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Bob, thank you again. We'll go ahead and send you backstage, and then we will close out, and we'll be
Right.
with you.
Thank you again, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, you guys. Wasn't he an amazing storyteller? From the stories on the ship to the occurrences past and present at his house. That chopsticks one.
That one got me.
And that was just recent. So that's incredible. I think it's definitely time to address that situation and bring some quiet and peace into his home. So
yeah, because seeing an apparition or feeling it's one thing, or hearing something, but when it gets physical, that's a different level that needs to be addressed and hopefully taken care of.
That is scary. That is scary for anybody. I don't care who you are.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys, thank you for joining us on Ghost Story Night, the first Ghost Story Night of 2025. We can't wait to bring you guys more things. You guys were amazing hanging out with us the whole time. We will be live again tomorrow night at Disneyland. On Saturday, this guy's going to go to Creep IE. Hopefully the reception and Wi-Fi and everything is on our side to go live. And then we'll move into next week. So thank you again for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you're new here and haven't hit that subscribe button, it's free to do, and it helps our channel out. And we're so grateful for all of you. So thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Happy 2025.
Happy 2025. And as we say here, we will see you all
a little later.
Good night,
you guys.
Good night, guys.